अस्सलाम वालेकुम एवरीवन, क्या हाल चाल हैं आप लोगों के। Okay, so let's start. क्या ख्याल है? Sir, the last question ruined me. Coordinate geometry of circle needed. Coordinate geometry of circle has been tested, so I don't know. So I remembered you had solved the last question in the video, yes. But I'll tell you what. In the video, the way that I did it was actually slightly lengthier than the way that it's supposed to be done, than the way that it was meant to be done. So many 2016 questions. Yeah, I just wanted to give some really challenging questions. So anyway, let's start. This, by the way, is going to be our last stream. Did you guys realize that? Sir, the last one is a classic. That paper had the lowest threshold. Yeah, exactly. Do you play Roblox? Yeah, I do with my nephews. Sir, aaj had karti waise maza aa gaya. Sir, I'm not well, I have fever. What should I? But the first thing you should do is go to a doctor. Second, what should I do in recent mocks? I scored 76 and 71. That's not a bad score. Can you please first solve? No, I'm not going to solve. I'm going to solve the paper in the order. Simple as that. Okay. Sir, do you have any formula sheet or summary notes for tomorrow? No. Just download the notes. I usually don't make formula sheets or summary notes. Why? Because then people think this is it. And everything is just sort of combined into this formula sheet. So I kind of avoid doing that. My focus has always been on making videos, making detailed notes. I've never made summarized notes. Acha, before I start, I'd appreciate if you guys like the stream if you haven't done that yet. And also subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that yet. Do you teach A-level? Yeah, of course I do teach A-level. Haven't completed the mock as I started watching TV show. Very good. Good going. चलें अब start करते हैं. I'm good, alhamdulillah. Do you remember me? Isa Qamar. From Nixer? चलें start करते हैं. Find the x coordinates of the points of intersection of the curves x square upon 4 plus, yeah, okay, I do remember you now, plus y square upon 9 equals to 1 and y is equals to 3 upon 2x. Give your answer correct to 3 decimal places. Okay, so first of all, notice that you're supposed to find the x coordinates. So there's a lot of hidden information in this question. It says x coordinates of the points. So that means you're likely to have more than one answer. Could be 2, could be 3, could be 4. I don't know. We'll find out. Give your answers, once again plural, correct to 3 decimal places. Okay, so whatever rule that we follow is on the side now. We have to give our answer correct to 3 decimal places. Simple as that. Okay, so no 3 significant figure rule will apply here. No 1 decimal place or anything. 3 decimal places. That's it. So since we're supposed to find out the x coordinates, what we can do is we can immediately plug in 3 upon 2x, which is y, into the first equation. Okay, and what's this equal to? This is equal to 1. Okay, now, so we have x squared upon 4 plus 3 squared, which is 9, upon 2x squared, which is 4x squared. Okay, and remember, this will be divided by 9. And what happens when you divide a fraction? You change it to multiplication, and then you have to take the reciprocal. So 9 upon 4x squared into 1 upon 9. And don't forget, throughout this time, this is equal to 1. Okay, so where are we headed towards? We're headed towards a disguised quadratic. Okay, we're headed towards a disguised quadratic equation. Let's see what we have. So we have x squared upon 4 plus 1 upon 4x squared, which is equal to 1. Okay, now let's take the LCM. The LCM will be 4x squared. So this becomes x power 4. Why? Because you'll have to multiply this by x squared. So you'll have to multiply this by x squared also. So this becomes x power 4 plus 1 is equals to 1. Now let's cross multiply. So we have x power 4 plus 1 is equals to 4x squared. Now let's shift all the terms to the left hand side. X power 4 minus 4x squared plus 1. Yeah, you can do that. You can substitute x power 2 with something else also. That's perfectly all right. Take x power 4 minus 4x squared is equals to 0. Acha, up at this point you can say कि let x square be equal to a, in which case it's going to be equal to a square minus 4a plus 1 is equals to 0. Either way, you'll have to use a quadratic formula to solve this. Okay. There were no decimal values. There are going to be decimal values. Okay, I don't know what you're talking about. There will be decimal values. So anyway, let's solve this. This is, I'm going to save some time. Take use a quadratic formula. You will have to use a quadratic formula. So minus 4 plus minus square root of b square minus 4ac upon 2a. So that's going to be minus 4 squared of b square minus 4ac. So 4 times 1 times 1. Upon 2a. That means 2. Okay, at this point, I'm just going to use a calculator to save some time. So 1 minus 4 and 1. So one value of a that we get, achha, because this is not the final answer, so I'm not going to round it off. Okay, because this is not the final answer, so I'm not going to round it off. So a is equals to 2 plus under root 3. Okay, or a is equals to 2 minus under root 3. Now remember, these are basically x square values. So that means x square is equals to 2 plus under root 3. Okay, or x square is equals to 2 minus under root 3. Okay, now we have to find out the value of x. So x is equals to plus minus. Let's see what is the square root of 2 plus under root 3. So that's equal to 1.932. Remember, the question says correct to 3 decimal places. Or x is equals to 2 minus under root 3. Then let's take the square root of it. So 0.518. Correct to 3 decimal places. Okay, read the question carefully. Make sure that you write a plus minus because you're taking the square root on both sides. And yeah, just make sure you find out the x coordinates, not the y coordinate. Okay? Now, question number 2. Given that 3x squared plus p into 1 minus 2x equals to minus 3, show that for x to be real. Now, what do we do when it says real? What do we do when it's real? So 3x squared minus 2px plus p plus 3 is equals to 0. Okay, let me just make sure that everything is in order. Yep, looks good. So a is equals to 3 greater than or equal to 0. Nope, it's greater than or equal to 0. Okay, when it says real and it doesn't specify whether it's real or equal or real and distinct, in that case, it's basically greater than or equal to 0. Okay, read the question carefully. It says greater, or it says real. So it could be real and equal, could be real and distinct. So we're going to merge both cases and say greater than or equal to 0. So a is equals to 3, b is equals to minus 2p, and c is equals to 3. Okay, so we need to show that b squared minus 4ac is greater than 0. If we use that, this is what we end up with. So minus 2p, the whole thing square, minus 4 times 3 times, acha, c jo hai na, wo 3 nahi, actually it's p plus 3. C is actually p plus 3. If it says equal roots, then you set it equal to 0. Simple as that. Okay, go over the notes, revise the cases that we follow. So this becomes 4p square. 4 times 3 is 12, so minus 12p. 4 times 3 is 12. 12 times 3 is 36, so minus 36 is greater than or equal to 0. Now we can further simplify this by taking 4 common, so it's going to be p square minus 3p minus 9 greater than or equal to 0. Shift 4 across the equals to sign, so it's going to be p square minus 3p minus 9 is greater than or equal to 0. Okay, now, hence find the set of values of p for which x is real, expressing your answer in exact form. In exact form, what does that mean? That means it's likely that we will not get integer values. It's likely that we will get answers in surd form, okay? And that's kind of true because if you try and do middle term breaking, you can't do middle term breaking of minus 9 in such a way that you end up with negative 3. So we'll have to use the quadratic formula. So p is equals to minus b. Minus b means minus 3 plus minus square root of b square minus 4ac. So that would be minus 3 squared minus 4 into 1 into minus 9 upon 2a. Okay, now remember, we're solving this like we would solve any other quadratic equation. First, we'll find out the x values, okay? And then we will find out the inequality. Then we'll write it in inequality. By the way, you guys can solve quadratic inequalities in your calculator, so please learn how to do that. Okay, if you don't know how it works, then, if you don't know that, then just watch a video. Okay, just Google the name of your calculator, watch a video on it, don't make a big deal out of it. If it's not in your calculator, then nothing to worry about. Just do it the way that you would normally do it. So P is equals to 3 plus minus 3 under root 5 upon 2. Okay, so these are the values of P. Now remember, this is a quadratic curve. Okay, this is a quadratic curve. And we are solving for greater than or equal to 0. So a positive value will be somewhere over here. The negative value is somewhere over here. Okay, make sure that you have a look at what the actual value is as in decimal so that you know where to place the x-intercepts. Even if you don't place them right, even if let's say you misplace them slightly, you'll still end up with the correct answer. We know that the positive value will be the greater one, the negative value will be the smaller one. Okay, so please don't waste time trying to pinpoint, trying to accurately locate the values. Just make sure that the positive one is, the greater one is on the right, the lesser one is on the left. Simple as that. ठीक है, अब I know बहुत सारे लोग जो हैं वो उसको over complicate करने की कोशिश करेंगे कि sir, what if it's slightly more towards the right and slightly more towards the left? No big deal. Okay, you're not going to get you're not going to be marked on the sketch anyway. You will basically be marked for the final answer. Now, since we want greater than or equal to 0, that means this is the part of the curve that we want. Okay, now how do we get this part of the curve? P must be greater than or equal to 3 plus 3 under root 5 upon 2. Okay, so that's one solution, comma, or you can use the word or. P is lesser than or equal to 3 minus 3 under root 5 upon 2. There you go. ठीक हो गया. Surds is assumed knowledge. Yes, that's correct. Okay, surds is not removed from the syllabus. Surds is basically assumed knowledge. Okay, now question number 3. Are we allowed to enter? Yes, of course you're allowed to enter with such calculators. As long as you cannot draw graphs in your calculator, you can use it. Will you teach further math? Nope, I have no plans of teaching further math anytime soon. Thoughts on the Monaco GP? Boring as always. No surprises. Use the binomial theorem to expand in ascending powers of x as far as the term in x cube. Okay, so that means we want the first 4 terms. So 1 plus 3x, the whole thing raised to the power 7. So no doubt the first term is going to be 1, and then after that we'll have 7c1, 1 raised to the power 6, 3x raised to the power 1, so we'll figure that out in a minute. 7c2, 1 raised to the power 5, 3x raised to the power 2, 7c3, 1 raised to the power 4, 3x raised to the power of 3. Okay, so 7 times 3, that's 21x. 7c2, let's see what's that equal to. 7c2 times 9, that's equal to 189. And let's see what this is equal to. 7c3 into 3 cubed, that's equal to 945. Okay, x cubed. So 1 plus 21x plus 189 x square plus 945 x cubed. Here we go. Okay. Now, part 2. Part 2 is a slightly unusual question in the sense that it's part of our syllabus, but it's not something that's tested too often. Okay, and it's very easy. Even if, let's say, this is something you're seeing for the first time, you can still sort of use your common sense. Okay, I know majority of the students at this point will just start cursing their teachers. Oh, my teacher didn't make us do this and do that. But if you honestly use your common sense, even if, let's say, you haven't done this and this is the first time you're looking at something like this, you can still do it. Okay. Show that your expansion from part 1 gives the value of 1.03 raised to the power 7 as 1.23 correct to 2 decimal places. Okay, so now there's a lot of the way that you're supposed to solve is actually hidden in the question. Okay, the way that you're supposed to solve is actually mentioned in the question, and that is show that your expansion. Okay, now if you notice, you expanded 1 plus 3x, the whole thing raised to the power 7, and now you're supposed to use this to evaluate 1.03 raised to the power 7. Now, one thing which is not by coincidence, it's by design, is the fact that both of them have the same power. Okay, now since both of them have same powers, that means what we can do is we can basically equate the bases. So 1 plus 3x is equals to 1.03, and then you can solve this for the value of x, which will give you 0.01. Once you have the value of x, what are you going to do with that value of x? You're going to plug in that value of x into this expansion in place of x, obviously. Okay? Because the question says that you have to use your expansion in the previous part. So don't expand it all the way. Just use the expansion that you have done in the previous part and simply plug in 0.01 in place of x, and then let your calculator figure it out. Let your calculator figure out what the value is correct to 2 decimal places. Okay, so let's work this out. 1 plus 21 times 0.01 plus 189 times 0.01, the whole thing squared, plus 945 times 0.01, the whole thing cubed. Okay, so this we get 1.229845. ये नहीं कि आपने बस यहाँ पे इसके बाद लिख दिया 1.23. You have to now show that the answer correct to 2 decimal places is in fact equal to 1.23. That means you need to write down the pre-rounded off value, and then you're supposed to write down the rounded off value. Okay, let me answer your questions. Do I know? No, I don't know who that is. Did you make a difficult mock? Well, I tried. If you didn't find it difficult, that's great. Can we use the form before expansion? What do you mean by that? The question says use the expansion, so beta, why would you not do that? Sir, question 1 में mistake कर दी, 4x power 4 है. अच्छा, तो मैंने क्या लिखा है? 4x power 4 है? नहीं, सही है. Okay. Now, find the term independent of x in the expansion of so and so. Independent of x. Independent of x means that r will be equal to 0. Okay, r will be equal to 0. Now let's see. R is equals to 12. Okay, let's find out. So 15c r, x power 4 upon 2. 2 upon x, this would be raised to the power of 15 minus r, and this would be raised to the power of r. Okay. Okay, so we want the end result to give us x power 0. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to ignore everything and anything that doesn't have to do anything with x. So x power 4 times 15 minus r into x power minus 1 times r is equals to x power 0. So x power 15 times 4, that's 60. 60 minus 4r minus r is equals to x power 0. So that means 5r is equals to 60. So r is equals to 12. Because it's a 2-mark question, so you don't have to sort of do everything step by step. Okay. Now, if r is equals to 12, that means if I plug in 12 in place of r, technically I should get the term that's independent of x. अच्छा, हो सकता है कुछ लोग सोच रहे हो कि भाई ये इतनी ख्वारी करने की क्या ज़रूरत थी, ये तो हम डायरेक्टली भी कर सकते थे. तो अगर आप इतने स्मार्ट हैं कि आप डायरेक्टली कर सकते हैं तो प्लीज़ गो अहेड. ठीक है. If you can directly figure out what's the value of r and you think you can work out the answer correctly, then please go ahead. There's nothing to worry about. Again, I'm not being sarcastic or anything. Go ahead. Just make sure that in the end you check that your answer is in fact the term that's independent of x. Okay, Mariam, that's what I was talking about. So x power 12 upon 2 cube, what's that equal to? That's equal to 8 into 2 power 12, that's equal to 4096 upon x power 12. So in the end, do we get the term that's independent of x? Yes, we do. Okay, so 455 into 4096 divided by 8, so we get 232,960. So that's the term that is indeed independent of x. Sir, can we use shoelace method to find the area or triangle or parallelogram? Yes, of course you can do that. You can use the shoelace method. That's perfectly acceptable. All right. The curve with equation y is equals to a sine bx plus c where a, b, and c are constants, passes through the points 4 pi, comma 11, minus 4 upon 3 pi, comma 5. It is given that a sine bx plus c has a period of 16 pi. Okay. Find the exact values of a, b, and c. Okay. Now, how do you determine period? Period or new period is equals to the natural period upon the coefficient of x. Okay, so what's the period according to the question? That's equal to 16 pi. What's the natural period of sine? That's equal to 2 pi. Divide by the coefficient of x, which is b. So with the help of this, we can find out the value of b. And what's that equal to? That's equal to 1.8. Okay, so let's put this on the side. Now, how do we find out the values of a and c? As far as the values of a and c are concerned, we'll have to use the points through which the question says that it's passing. Okay? So y is equals to a sine bx. Let's use the point 4 pi, comma 11. So 11 is equals to a sine. Now notice that we have figured out b to be equal to 1 upon 8. Now in place of x, we're going to plug in 4 pi. Okay. And then plus c. So let's see what we get. So we get sine of pi upon 2, which I think is 1. So make sure your calculator is in degree mode. Sine pi upon 2 is 1. Yep, that's correct. So 11 is equals to a plus c. Here we go. That's the first equation. Now, for the second equation, we'll plug in 5 in place of y. A sine 1 upon 8 times minus 4 pi upon 3. We'll figure this out in a minute. Plus c as it is. Okay, so sine of 1 upon 8 into 4 pi upon 3 with a minus sign. That's equal to minus 1 upon 2. So 5 is equals to minus 1 upon 2a plus c. ठीक है, अच्छा अब मैं ज़रा थोड़ा टाइम बचा रहा हूँ. Solve 1 and 2 simultaneously. Yeah, make sure that your calculator is in radian mode. Of course, make sure that your calculator is in radian mode. बेटा सवाल पढ़ लें आप. आपको एंगल आपको दिख रहे हैं कभी? आपने कभी देखे हैं डिग्री में ऐसे एंगल? नहीं देखे ना? So please use your common sense. If an angle is if x is in terms of pi, and we know x is an angle because it's going to be used with trigonometry, so that means चलो मैंने डिग्री मोड गलती से कह दिया. आप तो स्मार्ट है ना? ठीक है. Now solve 1 and 2 simultaneously and get the answer. So if we solve it simultaneously, 1, 1, 11, minus 0.5, 1, 5. Okay, so we get a to be equal to 4 and c to be equal to 7. ठीक है. Make sure that you guys show you're working, okay? I'm just doing this so I can save some time. Achha, what else? I have a question. Did you have to give O-levels during Ramadan? I heard some had to. No. Back in my time, it was not during Ramadan. Back in my time, Ramadan was in the summer break. Yeah. Hey, wait, not even in the summer break. Okay, result was during Ramadan. I remember that. Yeah. Back in my time, result was during Ramadan. All right, now let's see what's next. Using your answer to part A, find the coordinates of the minimum point on the curve for 0 to 16 pi. Okay, using your answer to part A. Now, where do we stand? So, what does it look like? Let's see. A is equals to 4. So, 4 sine 1 upon 8 x plus 7. Okay, what's the answer to this? Anyone who figured it out? It's actually not that difficult, you know. It's actually not that difficult. When is sine the smallest? Sine is, so if you look at the graph of sine, okay, if you look at the graph of sine, it's a 4-mark question. Achha, by the way, you can do it by differentiation also. Okay, you can do it by differentiation also, but you can be a little smart also. Okay, you can do it by differentiation, but you can also be a little smart. Now, we know very well that the least value of sine that we will get will be at 3 upon 4 pi. Correct? The least value of sine that we will get will be at 3 upon 4 pi. Okay? So that means if I want this to be equal to 3 upon 4 pi, what should be the value of x? Here's how we're going to figure that out. So 1 upon 8x should be equal to 3 upon 4 pi. Okay? So 1 upon 8x should be equal to 3 upon 4 pi. Or what should I plug in place of x so that the end result turns out to be 3 upon 4 pi. Okay? You can figure it out that way also. So when you solve it like this, for 1s are 4, for 2s are 8, x is equals to 3 times 2. What's that equal to? That's equal to 6 pi. Okay? So x is equals to 6 pi. Take care. Okay, wait a minute. Let me check. The least value of sine that we're going to get will be when it's 3 upon 4 pi. Oh yeah, 3 upon 2 pi. Of course. How silly. 3 upon 4 pi, 3 upon 2 pi. Sorry, my bad. 3 upon 2 pi. Okay, so 2 1s are, 2 4s are. Now let's cross multiply. X is equals to 3 times 4. What's that equal to? That's equal to 12 pi. Okay, great. Now what is the minimum sine value? The minimum sine value is equal to minus 1. Okay, so that means here's what you can do. We know that the plus 7 is not going anywhere. Okay, the plus 7 is not going anywhere. The least value of this, or the minimum value of any sine function, is equal to minus 1. So that means 4 times minus 1 plus 7. So what's minus 4 times 7? That's equal to 3. So that means the coordinates of the minimum point will be 12 pi, comma 3. There you go. Okay. So 12 pi, comma 3 is the correct answer. ठीक हो गया? Okay. So made 4 pi and 12 pi. Why are you getting two different values of x? The question is asking for the coordinates of the minimum point. So you should get one answer. Four pi b hai. Find the coordinates of the minimum point on the curve. 4. But the question only says 1 point. Taro, let me check what the answer is. Just a second. Let me check what the answer is. अगर आप लोग डिफरेंशिएशन से कर रहे हैं ना, तो फिर एक चीज़ का ख्याल रखिएगा. If you guys are solving it through differentiation, you can totally solve it through differentiation, but just be careful about one thing. If you solve it by differentiation, you will have to further figure out whether the point is minimum or maximum. Okay, so you can totally solve it by differentiation. I will solve it by differentiation, just a minute. Okay, but just be careful about one thing, that when you solve it by differentiation, you wouldn't know which point is minimum, which point is maximum. So you might have to double differentiate and check which one is minimum, which one is maximum. I'll do it by differentiation, but I don't recommend it. So y is equals to 4 sine 1 upon 8x plus 7. So dy by dx is equal to 4 cos 1 upon 8x times 1 upon 8, and of course the derivative of 7 will be equal to 0. So 4 into 1 upon 8, that would be equal to 1 upon 2. So 1 upon 2 cos 1 upon 8x, that is dy by dx. Okay, which you're going to equate to 0. So that means 1 upon 2 cos 1 upon 8x is equals to 0. So cos of 1 upon 8x is equals to 0. Okay, now when is the graph of cos equal to 0? The graph of cos is equal to 0 at pi upon 2 and at 3 upon 2 pi. So pi upon 2 पे 0 है and 3 upon 2 pi पे 0 है. So that means 1 upon 8x is equals to pi upon 2, or 1 upon 8x is equals to 3 upon 2 pi. ठीक है? Now this is a bit tricky because you will get two values of x. This is equal to 4 pi, and the other value of x that you will get will be equal to 8 times 3, that's 24. 24 upon 2, that's equal to 12 pi. Now you will have to find out the corresponding y values. Okay, so when you find out the corresponding y values, one value that you will get will be a greater value, the other value that you will get will be a lesser value. Because the question is asking for minimum, you will write down the lesser value. Okay, so let's find out the corresponding y values. So 1 upon 8 into 4 pi plus 7, this gives you 11. Okay, and then if you plug in 12 pi, you get 3. So which point do you think is going to be the minimum point? Again, use your common sense. Which point will be the minimum point? The minimum point is the point where y is as small as possible. So that means the minimum point will be 12 pi comma 3. Okay? So if you're using differentiation, then simultaneously make sure that you're using your common sense also. Okay, so here we go. Now question number 5. The first 3 terms of an arithmetic progression are sine 3x, 5 sine 3x, 9 sine 3x. Find the exact values of x, okay, for which the sum to 20 terms is equal to 390. I wouldn't recommend that you do double differentiation. It's just going to be a total waste of time. You will double differentiate, then you will plug in the value of x. One will give you a negative result, one will give you a positive result. Make sure to take the one which gives you a positive result because you're looking for the minimum value. Okay. The first 3 terms of an arithmetic progression, find the values of x for which the sum to 20 terms is equals to 390. So S20 is equals to 390. All right, now we have the first term which is equal to sine 3x. Let's write that down. Sine 3x. And as far as the common difference goes, the common difference would be 5 sine 3x minus sine 3x. So that's as good as 4 sine 3x. Okay. So 20 upon 2. That's n upon 2 into 2a, so that means 2 times sine 3x plus n minus 1, which is 19, into the common difference, which is 4 sine 3x. All right, and what is this going to be equal to? This will be equal to 390. Okay, so first let's cross out the zeros, let's cross out the 2's, and now we're looking at 2 sine 3x. What's 19 times 4? I think 76. Yeah, 76. Plus 76 sine 3x is equal to 39. Now 76 plus 2 is equals to 78. So 78 sine 3x is equals to 39. Let's simplify. 39 divided by 78, that's equal to 1 upon 2. So sine 3x is equal to 1 upon 2. Now this is a trigonometric equation. Okay, this is a trigonometric equation. And notice that the range that we're given is for x. Okay, and in the equation we have 3x. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to alter the range. So 3x would be greater than or equal to 0, and this would be lesser than or equal to 3 upon 2 pi. Okay. So does the question say find the exact values of x? Okay, exact values of x. That means we're likely to get more than one answer. Now sine is positive, that means it's going to be in the first or the second quadrant, and since it's positive, when we take sine inverse of half, we get 45 degrees, which is pi upon 4. 45 degrees, no wait, we get 30 degrees, which is pi upon 3. No wait, pi upon 6. Okay, I shouldn't rely on my mental math, I should just use a calculator. Pi upon 6. Okay, now remember, these are basically solutions of 3x. Okay, so 3x is equals to pi upon 6, or in the second quadrant, it's going to be pi minus pi upon 6, which would be equal to 5 upon 6 pi. Okay, so make sure that your 5 looks like a 5, doesn't look like an S. You don't want to confuse the examiner. So x is equals to pi upon 18, comma, 5 pi upon 18. Here we go. That's it. Should we know the value of sine 0 and cos 0? Of course, tan 0 also. Okay, you should know the graph of sine and cos, and that's how you can figure out the values. Okay, now, question number 6, kinematics. Find the distance, the diagram shows the velocity time graph of a particle moving in a straight line with velocity so and so. Find the distance traveled by the particle. Now, what is it of the distance time graph that gives you velocity? Oh, sorry, what is it of the velocity time graphs that gives you distance traveled? What is it of the velocity time graph that gives you the distance traveled? It's the area. That's correct. It's the area. Okay, now we'll have to break this down. I don't think we can do it directly. It's a 2-mark question. It's actually a lot of working for 2 marks, but chalo koi baat nahi. So for the first part, let's call this the first part. Let's call this the second part, and let's call this the third part. So for the first part, it's going to be equal to 25 times 30. Okay, whatever that is equal to, we'll figure it out. Yeah, so let's figure it out right away. So that's going to be equal to 750. Okay, now for the second part, it's going to be equal to half times 30 plus 15 times 10. So 30 plus 15 is 45. 45 times 10 divided by 2, that's equal to 225. Then for the third and the final part, once again it's a trapezium. The parallel ends are horizontal. Okay, the height is going to be vertical. So half times 35 and 60, what's that? 60 minus 35, that's equal to 25 plus 15 into the height, which is also 15. So 25 plus 15 divided by 2 into 15, that's equal to 300. So 300 plus 750 plus 225, that's equal to 1275. 1275 meters is the total distance traveled. Okay? Now, write down the deceleration of the particle when t is equals to 30. So that means at this point, now the deceleration will be same from 25 to 35. Why? Because it's a downward sloping line. So we can divide to, yeah, you can do that also, but I don't recommend it. Try and take a trapezium. The lesser the working, the lesser the chances of an error. I mean, the lesser you break it down, the lesser the chances of error. So that means for the second part, all we have to do is find out the gradient of the line that I have colored red. So we need 2 points. One point can be 25, 30. The other point can be 35, 15. Okay, pick points that you can read easily. So 15 minus 30 over 35 minus 25. So that's minus 15 upon 10. And what's that equal to? That's equal to minus 1.5 meter per second square, or minus 3 upon 2, whatever you want to write it as. Okay, the diagram shows a velocity time graph for a particle q moving in a straight line with velocity so and so. The displacement of q at time t is s meters. Okay, on the axis below, draw the corresponding displacement time graph. Okay, so we have to draw a displacement time graph. Okay, Acha, yeah, no minus. Yep, you're right. So it will be minus, but then the final answer will not have minus. Yeah, that could have cost us 1 mark. Final answer. Okay. The diagram shows a velocity time graph of particle q moving in a straight line. Where can I find past papers of coordinate geometry? There haven't been past papers of coordinate geometry of circles because it's only been recently added in the syllabus. All right, so here's what we're going to do. Now notice that these are horizontal lines. Okay. So first thing that we're going to do is we're going to find out a horizontal line means that the velocity is constant. Okay. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to find out the area under this. Okay, we're going to find out the area under this, and let's see what's that equal to. So for the first part, let's find out this area. So this would be equal to 6 times 10, which is equal to 60. So that means at 10 seconds, the object has traveled a distance of 60 meters. So this is what it looks like. Okay, now looking at the graph, we can see that the object doesn't turn. Because how do we know that the object has turned? We know that the object has turned when it goes below the horizontal axis. And this hasn't gone below the horizontal axis. Okay, so I'll make this dotted so you have a view of the original graph also. Okay, now next is, let's find out distance traveled from 10 to 20, which would be equal to 10 times 3. And what's that equal to? That's equal to 30. So that means in the next 10 seconds, an additional distance of 30 has been traveled. So that means the total distance traveled is equals to 60 plus 30, which is equal to 90. So in 20 seconds, the total distance traveled is 90. So that means we have another point, which is 10, 90, and there you go. This is what the displacement time graph looks like. Okay? All right. Acha, what's going on here? Okay. Equation of motion. Are you okay? No, there is no equation of motion in the syllabus. So why is it till 90? Because the total distance covered in 20 seconds is equals to 90 meters. That's correct. Now here's the thing. Yeah, every time I think I should get a moderator, but then aaj to waise hi aakhri din hai. So here's the deal. In the first 10 seconds, the distance... Also notice that here the displacement would be the same as the distance. Why? Because the object is not turning. Okay, now because the object is not turning, so the displacement and the distance, they will both be equal. So here's what we're looking at. But if you want to have a look at the explanation of a certain question again, just please watch that part of the video again. Okay, you can do back and forth. This is not you're not watching TV. Okay, you can do back and forth, and you can watch it as many times as you like. Now here's the thing. I'll go over this again because it's a bit tricky. So in the first 10 seconds, the object travels a distance of 60 meters. So that means in 10 seconds, the object has traveled a distance of 60 meters. Now the reason why I drew this vertical line is so that I can break it down. Because the velocity from 0 to 10 is different, and then the velocity from 10 to 20 is different. Okay? Now, what is the distance traveled from 10 seconds to 20 seconds? For that, you will have to work out the area under this line. Okay, so the area under this line would be equal to 30. So that means the total distance now traveled is 60 plus 30, which is equal to 90. How to figure out if the object is turning? Equate velocity to 0. Okay, please watch the kinematic stream. I mean, you guys should not be asking me this question, considering you guys have an exam tomorrow. Okay. But, well, if you still want to find out, just watch any one of the kinematic stream. And I think I tested that concept in the last mock also. So why is this a straight line and when to draw a curve? Because the velocity is constant. Okay, because the velocity is constant, that means there's got to be an upward sloping line. Okay, there's got to be an upward sloping line. Okay, here also once again the velocity is constant, that means there's got to be an upward sloping line. Okay. Okay, now part C. The velocity of a particle R moving in a straight line after passing through a fixed point O is given by so and so. Explain why the particle is never at rest. Okay, so the reason why the particle is never at rest is because V is never equal to 0. Simple. 0 or even negative. Okay. How to figure out if velocity is turning from the graph? Okay, what do you mean velocity is turning? You mean object is turning. If, let's say, the velocity becomes negative, that means the object is turning. Because the only way that a velocity can become negative is for it to become 0 first. And if the velocity is 0, that means the object is at rest. And if it's negative, that means now it's moving in the opposite direction. Achha beta, what's likely to come and what's not likely to come? I've already discussed that. Okay, so please don't ask me right now. I don't even remember exactly. I'll probably end up misguiding you or something. So just watch the video in which I've talked about the topics that are likely to be tested. Okay. Find the exact value of t for which the acceleration of r is 12. So how do you go from velocity to acceleration? You differentiate. So dv upon dt will be equal to 4e raised to the power 2t times 2. So that's equal to 8 e power 2t. And what are we equating this to? We're equating this to 12. So that means e power 2t is equals to 12 upon 8, which is equal to 1.5. How will we solve this? We'll solve this using ln. So ln e to the power 2t is equal to ln 1.5. Notice the question says give the exact answer. So t is equals to ln 1.5 upon 2. Okay. Or you can write it as 3 upon 2 also. That's perfectly all right. Okay. Or you can write it as half ln. If you like fractions better, then write it like this. Okay. Please don't write it in decimal. Read the question. Okay. Read the question. Don't just throw away marks by not reading the question. It says exact value. Showing all your working, find the distance traveled by r in the interval between t equals to 0.4 and t equals to 0.5. So that means we're going to integrate velocity within the limits 0.4 and 0.5. Simple as that. Okay. So that's also correct. Okay. You can equate it to 0, and you can show that there is no value of t where it's equal to 0. So that's also perfectly all right. Now the equation of velocity is 4e power 2t plus 6. So 4e power 2t plus 6, this is what we're integrating within the limit 0.4 and 0.5, okay, with respect to t. So that means 4e power 2t upon 2 plus 6t. And in this, we're going to plug in the limit 0.5 and 0.4. And in the end, give your answer correct to 3 significant figures. So to read the question carefully, does it say give the exact value or give your answer in a certain form? Nope, it doesn't. So just give your answer correct to 3 significant figures. Now do show the expression with the values plugged in. So 2 times 0.5 plus 6 times 0.5. Okay, so this is with the upper limit plugged in. Now in the same expression, just plug in the lower limit. So minus, in place of 0.5, simply plug in 0.4. Sir, do we lose marks if you don't? Yeah, you don't. There's no unit that you have to mention here. Okay, so us AdMath students, we have bigger fish to fry. So if you don't write down the unit, that's perfectly all right. 4e to the power 2x plus 6 within the limit 0.4 and 0.5. So 1.585, which correct to 3 significant figures, will be 1.59. In fact, a good idea would be to first write down the pre-rounded off value and then the rounded off value. Okay, now question number 7. The diagram shows part of the graph so and so and x equals to 2, where the line x equals to 2 meets the curve at the point 2 comma b, and the line AB is parallel to the x-axis. Find the area of the shaded region. Okay, so let's plan our answer. The way that we're going to find out the area of shaded region is by first finding out the area of the rectangle. Okay, and from that we will have to subtract area under the curve. Okay. Sir, 4 significant figures likh diya, to it's best that you write it correct to 3 significant figures. Okay. Sir, have you watched Suits? Because it's nope, I haven't. Anyway, so where were we? Yeah. So area of shaded region is equal to area of rectangle. ठीक है, ये प्लानिंग आपके लिए है, ठीक है, ये एग्जामिनर को इम्प्रेस करने के लिए नहीं है. दिस इज ओनली फॉर योर सेक. सो एरिया ऑफ रेक्टेंगल माइनस एरिया under the curve. Now, do we have all the information to calculate area under the curve? Yes, we do, because we have all the limits. But in order to calculate the area of the rectangle, we don't have enough information. We do have the length, but we don't have the width. So that means we'll have to find out the coordinates of A. Now, one thing we know for sure about A is that its x coordinate is going to be 0. There's going to be some y coordinate. But another problem. Instead of finding out the coordinates of A, why not find out the coordinates of B actually? Yeah, so instead of finding out the coordinates of A, why not find out the coordinates of B? B will have coordinates 2 comma y. Okay. So let's plug in 2 in place of x into the equation. So y is equals to 6 plus e raised to the power 4 times 2 is 8. 8 minus 5 is equals to 3. So that means 6 plus e cube is basically the y coordinate of B. So 2 comma 6 plus e cube. So let me just double check. I don't want to mess it up. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 minus 5 is 3. Okay. So we're going to keep things exact till we get to the very end. Okay, so try and keep everything in exact form till we get to the very end. Now, can we find out the area of the rectangle? Yes, we can. So area of rectangle would be equal to 2 times, so that's the length, okay, times the width. Now, since AB is a line that's parallel to the x-axis, that means it's a horizontal line, okay? And the y coordinate of A will be the same as the y coordinate of B. So 2 times 6 plus e cube. This is the area of the rectangle. minus the area under the curve. Now for the area under the curve, it's going to be 6 plus e power 4x minus 5 within the limit 0 and 2. So to find distance, should we integrate? Yes. To find distance traveled, integrate velocity within the limits. So 2 times 6 is 12. 12 plus 2e cubed. Now let's put this on the side. We'll come back to it. Now let's focus here. So this will become 6x plus e raised to the power 4x minus 5 upon 4 within the limits 2 and 0. Okay, let's see what we're doing. अच्छा बेटा बहुत हंसी आ रही है, मैं आपको हाइड ही कर देता हूँ, आप आराम से हंसते रहें कोने में जाके. Now let's plug in 2. So what do we get? We get 12. Then let's plug in 2 in place of x. So 4 times 2 is 8. 8 minus 5 is 3. So that would be e cube upon 4. Okay, so this is what you get with the upper limit plugged in. All right. Now let's plug in 0. So if you plug in 0, you will get 6 times 0. That's equal to 0. Plus e raised to the power 4 times 0 is 0. 0 minus 5 is minus 5 upon 4. Okay. Now let's see. Where do we stand? So 12 plus 2e cubed. ठीक हो गया. इसमें से हम माइनस कर रहे हैं क्या? इसमें से हम माइनस कर रहे हैं 12 plus e cube upon 4 minus 1 upon, I'm going to write this nicely now, 4e power 5. Okay, now let's open up the bracket. So we have 12 plus, how many marks is this? 7 marks. Yeah, makes sense. 12 plus 2e cubed, okay, minus 12 minus e cube upon 4 plus 1 upon 4e power 5. Okay, now it's time to just use your calculator, so we can cross out the 12s. Okay, now let's use your calculator finally and just put this all in and see what do we get. So e cube upon 4 plus 1 upon 4 e cube. So we get 35.162. 35.162, which correct to 3 significant figures will be equal to 35.2. Read the question again and again to see if the question has asked you to write the answer a certain way. No, it hasn't, so we'll just leave it like this. Okay. Here we go. Now, the normal to the curve y is equals to, can we give our answer in exact form? Because the question is silent, you can actually. Because the question is silent, you can actually leave your answer in exact form. Okay. The normal to the curve y is equals to 1 plus tan 3x at the point P with x coordinate pi upon 12 meets the x-axis at the point Q. All right, the line x equals to pi upon 12 meets the x-axis at the point R. Find the area of the triangle PQR. Okay. All right, a good idea would be to make a rough sketch. Yeah, I think let's make a rough sketch. Now we don't have to make the entire sketch of tan. Okay, we can just do the first part because it's 1 plus tan 3x now. So that means it's probably going to be something like this. We know that the first asymptote will be at pi upon 2. Okay, so we don't even have to go till there. The point that we're talking about is pi upon 12. So that means it's going to be way, way before that point. Okay? Now, the normal to the curve at the point P with x coordinate pi upon 12. So that means point P has got to be here somewhere. Okay? And if I draw a tangent, this is what the tangent will look like. If I draw a normal, this is what the normal will look like. Okay? Rough sketch banana bahut zaruri hai. Exam mein, if there is a question which you don't fully understand, please take my advice and make a rough sketch. Okay, especially when it comes to finding, if let's say there's a question where you have to find out equation of tangent, normal, which is then connected with area, it's always a good idea to make a rough sketch. Okay, now, so what does the question say? The question says the line meets the x-axis at the point Q. Okay, so let's mark that. The normal meets the x-axis at the point Q. This, by the way, is the x-axis, and this, by the way, is the y-axis. Achha, then the question says the line x equals to pi upon 12, and this, by the way, is point P. Okay, so that means there's a vertical line here. Okay, and this vertical line, according to the question, at pi point 12 meets the x-axis at r. So that means we have ourselves a very small 90-degree triangle of which we're supposed to find out the area. Okay, now I'll go over this again. Isn't Q negative? No, I don't think Q is negative. It could be negative. We'll find out. We'll find out with the passage of time whether it's negative or not. Okay, but it says normal, so I don't think it's going to be negative. So here's what we're dealing with. So this is 1 plus tan 3x, roughly. Okay. This is pi upon 12. This is the tangent at pi upon 12. This is the normal at pi upon 12, which cuts the x-axis at the point Q. Now, the line x equals to pi upon 12, which is obviously going to be a vertical line, is cutting the x-axis at point R. And now we have ourselves a triangle of which we're supposed to find out the area. Okay. Now, let's differentiate this. So y is equals to 1 plus tan 3x. That means when you differentiate it, you get dy by dx to be equal to sec square 3x times 3, which is equal to 3 sec square 3x. Okay, now what's the value of x? The value of x is equals to pi upon 12. Okay, but remember, you can't plug it in sec because we don't have sec in our calculator. What we do have is cos. So 3 upon cos square 3 times pi upon 12. Okay, so I'm going to work this out, and this will give me, remember, the gradient of tangent. Okay, what I want is the gradient of normal. You can do it using shoelace method also, but considering that we have a right angle triangle, I think it's pointless using the shoelace method. Anyway, so make sure your calculator is in radian mode. So 3 upon cos 3 times pi upon 12. So 3 times pi upon 12, close the bracket, square it, so you get 6. So the gradient of tangent is equals to 6. That means the gradient of normal will be equal to minus 1 upon 6. And that makes sense. It's a downward sloping line. So that means, no, shoelace method is allowed. Who said it's not allowed? Shoelace method is allowed. Okay. But do it with lengths. What I would recommend is do it with lengths. We can substitute tan square x identity. I don't recommend that. Mariam, I don't recommend that. When you already know that sec square has an identity which is 1 upon cos square, so why waste time? Anyway, now we want the point, we want the coordinates of P. Now we already have the x coordinate, which is pi upon 12. Let's find out the y coordinate. Now I know for sec square, I'm aware of that. But my point is, okay, why would you do that when you already have an identity, an easier identity? Okay, so 3 times pi upon 12 will give us the y coordinate, which is equal to 2. Okay, so remember, to find out the corresponding y coordinate, plug in pi upon 12 in this equation. So tan of 3 times pi upon 12, and you get y is equals to 2. Okay? Achha, here's the thing. Let's form the equation of tangent so that we can find out the point at which it cuts the x-axis. Y minus 2 is equals to minus 1 upon 6 x minus pi upon 12. Be systematic with your working. Okay, you don't want to lose marks because of a silly error. Now, as far as q is concerned, we know very well that q will have an x coordinate and the y coordinate will be 0. Okay, so just plug in 0 in place of y. So 0 minus 2 is equals to minus 1 upon 6 into x minus pi upon 12. Okay, so first thing we can do is we can cross out the minus signs, then we can cross multiply. So 12 is equals to x minus pi upon 12. So that means x is equals to 12 plus pi upon 12. Okay, x is equals to 12 plus pi upon 12. Let me just make sure everything's correct. Yeah. Okay, so I think that's it. We are almost there. So what we are looking at is basically something like this. A good idea would be to draw it separately. So this is point P, this is point Q, this is point R. अच्छा, point Q के coordinates हैं 12 plus pi upon 12. Point R के coordinates हैं pi upon 12. ठीक है, comma 0. as far as point P is concerned, point P has coordinates pi upon 12, comma 2. Okay, so that means this is going to be the base. Okay, so the base would be equal to 12 plus pi upon 12 minus pi upon 12. So that means the base is equals to 12. And then as far as the height is concerned, the height would simply be equal to 2. Okay. Now, what are we looking at? We are looking at this. Half into base, which is equal to 12, into the height, which is equal to 2. So that means the area is simply equal to 12. Okay. Here we go. That's the answer. Okay, how many marks? 7 marks. Not bad. Okay, so this is the final answer. The final answer is ये जो 11 point आप लोगों का आ रहा है ना वो आप लोगों का इसलिए आ रहा है because you guys probably didn't keep it in terms of pi. That's why you're not getting the right answer. Okay, 12.6 is not acceptable, and I wouldn't recommend shoelace method. You'll make a very easy question extremely complicated for yourself. So I wouldn't recommend the shoelace method by any means whatsoever. ठीक हो गया? Okay, now let's move on. Question number 9. Find how many 5-digit even numbers can be made using each of the digit 1, 2, 3, 4. No, 12 is the correct answer, okay? Anything else is unacceptable. Simple as that. ठीक है, अब आप shoelace use करें, आप कुछ भी use करें. The correct answer is 12. Simple. Alright, so 5-digit even numbers. So if I want to make a number even, that means the last digit can be 2, 4, or... No, there is no 6. That means how many options do we have for the last place? We have 2 options. Now we started off with 5 numbers. Now we've used one of those. So that means now we have 5, 4, 3, 2. Or you can simply do 5p4. Okay, so 5p4 into 2, that's equal to 240. There we go. Shoelace method, but I'm not going to use the shoelace method. Okay? I'm not going to use the shoelace method because I don't recommend it. So why would I recommend something I don't use? Achha, okay, wait a minute. This is going to be 4p4. So 4p4. ठीक है. Calm down, fellas. 4p4 times 2, that's equal to 48. Find how many different 3-digit numbers can be made using the digits 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so now we're talking about 3-digit numbers. And we're talking about different, not even, so no restriction whatsoever. Okay, so (5p3), that's it. 5p3, which is equal to 60. 2 marks, not bad. A man and 2 women are to sit in a row of 5 empty chairs. Calculate the number of ways they can be seated if the 2 women must sit next to each other. Okay, so we're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so we're talking about 5 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But here's the deal. The 2 women must sit next to each other. So that means 2 factorial for the 2 women. Okay. And then there's a man here. So altogether we have how many units or how many blocks? We have 4 blocks. So 2 factorial so that the women can shuffle amongst themselves into 4 factorial. But here's the thing. Are we going to leave it like this? 2 factorial into 4 factorial? What do you guys think? 2 factorial into 4 factorial hona chahiye iska answer? No, why not? If you leave it at 2 factorial into 4 factorial, that's incorrect. Why? Because notice that there are 2 empty chairs. These are empty. Okay? And because they're empty, that means they are identical. Okay? Because if you have 2 empty chairs are identical, right? So if you have 2 empty chairs, that means they are identical. So therefore, you have to divide by 2 factorial. Okay? So why are we dividing by 2 factorial? Because the 2 empty identical chairs. That's why we're dividing by 2 factorial. Okay, so that means 4 factorial is the answer, which is equal to 24. All 3 people must sit next to each other. So once again, the same concept. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the first, let's put the 3 people in a box. So here we go. They can shuffle amongst themselves, 3 factorial. So that's 1, 2, 3. So you have 3 factorial into 3 factorial. But once again, don't forget that you will also divide by 2 factorial. Why? Because of the 2 empty identical chairs. So this is equal to 18. Okay, nope, not 36, 18. 2p2 into 4p2. Why would you do 2p2 into 4p2? Well, that doesn't work. 2p2 works for 2 women. 4p2 See if you're getting the correct answer. I'm not sure. So how do we know that they're identical? They're empty. Okay, aren't 2 empty chairs identical? Aren't 2 empty chairs identical? Of course they are. Okay. So here's the thing. The only tricky part in this question is that we have 2 identical chairs. So first thing, you put the women in a box, 2 factorial, because there are 2 women, they can shuffle amongst themselves. Okay. And then here's a man. And this man can be in this place, or in this place. Okay. So in order to take that into consideration, we count the 2 women as 1 box. Then we have 2, 3, 4. So that means we have 4 different units. So that would be 4 factorial. 2 factorial for the 2 women, 4 factorial for the 4 remaining units that can be shuffled, or blocks. You can call them blocks, you can call them units. But remember, amongst these 4 blocks, 2 blocks are identical because they're both empty. Okay, so therefore we divide by 2 factorial. ठीक हो गया. And the same thing we do in part 2 also. All right, question number 10, which I believe is the second last question. Let's see what this says. In this question, I is a unit vector due east, j is a unit vector due north. Units of syllabus go through. Nahi beta, syllabus go through nahi hoga. I've already done a syllabus go through. No, man is not fixed. Because the man is not fixed, that's why we've considered 4 factorial. Because these 2 women sitting together and the man can be shuffled, that's why we've done 4 factorial. Okay. The question didn't specify. Okay, if the question did not specify, does the question really have to specify that 2 empty chairs will be identical? I don't think so. In this question, I is a unit vector due east and j is a unit vector due north. Units of length and velocity are meters and meters per second respectively. The initial position vectors of particles A and B relative to a fixed point O are I plus 5j and qi minus 15j respectively. A and B start moving at the same time. A moves with the velocity of pi minus 3j and B moves with the velocity of 3i minus j. Given that A travels with the speed of 5 meters per second, find the value of the positive constant p. Okay, so what's the velocity that we are given for A? It's pi minus 3j, so that means p and minus 3. Sorry, p and minus 3. Now, what is it of the velocity vector that's equal to speed? It's the magnitude. No, man can shuffle. That's why we've done 4 factorial. Because the man can shuffle, that's why we've done 4 factorial. So p square plus 9 is equals to 5 inside the square root. So p square plus 9 is equals to 25. So p square is equals to 16. P is equals to plus minus 4. But obviously, we're going to go with 4. Okay? हमने 4 factorial इसीलिए किया ना, because the 4 blocks that we have can be shuffled. Okay? Find the direction of motion of B as a bearing correct to the nearest degree. Okay, so what is the velocity vector of B? As far as B is concerned, the velocity vector of B is 3i minus j. So we have to find out the direction of motion of B as a bearing correct to the nearest degree. So 3n minus 1. 3n minus 1 means this is where it's headed. 3 units towards the right, 1 unit down. Okay, so in order to find out the bearing, first, let's identify what will the bearing look like. This is what the bearing will look like. So first, we'll have to find out alpha. How will I find out alpha? Remember, this is 1, this is 3. So we'll have to use tan. So tan alpha is equals to opposite, which is 1 upon 3. So alpha is equals to, make sure your calculator is in degree mode. So tan inverse of 1 upon 3, that's equal to 18.43. So the bearing would be 90 plus 18.43. So that means the final answer is equal to 108.4. 108.4 degrees. Okay. अच्छा, what is it? I don't know, sir. Will the difficulty of P2 be similar to this paper? बेटा मैंने बहुत पहले पेपर 2 बना के दिया था CI वालों का, मुझे याद नहीं है कि मैंने पेपर में क्या दिया. So I guess tomorrow you guys will find out. ठीक है? I hope that answers your question. State the position vector of A after t seconds. So position vector of A after t seconds, what does that mean? That means the point from where it starts, so that's 1, 5. Okay. Why did we add 90? Because we're finding out the bearing. Plus the velocity vector, and since we've already worked out the value of P, so that's going to be equal to 4. And what's the J component? That's minus 3. Okay. And we'll multiply that by T. Okay, state the position vector of B after t seconds. So it's probably, it says correct to the nearest degree. Okay, I didn't read that. So 108 is going to be the final answer. So let's not put a box around this. There we go. Okay, now. So position vector of B after t seconds, so it's probably setting you up for, did we find the value of Q? No. So it's probably setting you up to find out the value of Q. So, सही कह रहे हैं आप लोग, क्या करें, आप लोगों के साथ रह रहे के ना आप लोगों का असर आ गया. So Q and minus 15, अभी छुट्टियाँ हो रही है ना, so I'll probably recalibrate. Q and minus 15 plus the velocity vector of B, what's that equal to? That is equal to 3 and minus 1. So 3 and minus 1 times t. Okay, in the following part, the question will probably say they meet. Yeah. So if they meet, that means we're going to equate their position vectors. Okay, so let's do that. And we're going to take the j components. So 5 minus 3t is equals to minus 15 minus t. So that means 20 is equals to 2t. That means t is equals to 10. ठीक हो गया? All right, sir, can we give the answer? Yeah, you can do that. You can do that. In fact, I think in the marking scheme, you will find it like that. So you can do it like that also. Find the position vector of the point where A and B meet. Now, we can only find out the position vector if we plug in the value of t in A's equation, not in B's equation, because B के कुछ parts missing है. So 1, 5 plus 4 and minus 3 times 10. So 40 plus 1, that's 41, minus 30 plus 5, that's minus 25. There you go. Find the value of the constant Q. So for constant Q, it's going to be Q plus 3 times 10 will be equal to the X component, which is 41. So Q is equals to 40 minus 30, which means Q is equals to 11. There you go. Nice question. Nice question in the way that they've broken it down. Yeah, that's the formula that we're using. That's the formula that we're using. Why not the I component? What do you mean, why not the I component? Because you don't have the components, you don't have the complete equation of B. Or you don't have the complete I component of B. That's why. Okay, now we have... have I solved this? Sure. Paper में पहले से ये डाला हुआ था? The paper that you guys had, उसमें ये पहले से डाला हुआ था या नहीं? I hope not. I hope I didn't end up giving you guys a hint or something. Sir, why didn't you tell us in terms of Q for part 4? Why didn't I tell you? अच्छा नहीं था, चलें, that's great. Why didn't it tell us? You're right. I mean, you could argue that okay, it should have mentioned, but I guess they forgot or something. Anyway, so it's actually not that difficult a question. It's actually not that difficult. Show that the volume V of the triangular prism is given by so and so. Now, what prism are we talking about? First of all, let's read the question. The diagram shows a right triangular prism of height h inside a right pyramid. So this is what it's talking about. Okay? This is basically the right triangular prism that we're talking about. Acha, अब the deal is that you basically have two pyramids, okay? You basically have two pyramids which are similar, okay? You basically have two pyramids that are similar. Now, what are the two pyramids? What are those two pyramids? Here's one, okay, the small one, and then the big one. These two pyramids are similar, okay? And if they're similar, that means the ratio of their base and the ratio of their height will be the same. Okay, if they're similar, that means they will have the same, their bases will have the same ratio, the heights will have the same ratio. And also don't forget that you are dealing with an equilateral triangle. Okay, so this triangle that you're looking at is an equilateral triangle. That means this triangle will also be an equilateral triangle. Okay, and this triangle will also be an equilateral triangle. Why? Because these two are opposite ends of a prism. Okay, now here's what we can do. Let's consider this base to be equal to x, and if this is x, that means this is also equal to x. Okay. Acha, what about the height of the small pyramid? The height of the small pyramid will be equal to 12 minus h. Okay, the height of the small pyramid will be equal to 12 minus h. Okay, now, so here's what we're going to do. I will quickly highlight the shapes that I'm using. So I'm using this, okay, and I'm using this. ठीक हो गया? These two triangles are similar. And if these two triangles are similar, that means we can consider the ratio of their bases. So what we can do is, sir, आपकी बातें अभी सर पे से गुजर रही हैं. They go over my head in chem class. अच्छा? So let me get through this, then I'll go over it again. So x upon 8 will be equal to 12 minus h upon 12. So here's what I've done. Dekho, first of all, you need to realize that the two pyramids are similar. Okay, I'm not saying that, the question is saying that. If these two pyramids are similar, that means as long as I take any of their lengths, as long as they're corresponding, they're going to be in the same ratio. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm taking this length of the smaller pyramid, dividing it by the same corresponding length of the larger pyramid. Okay, and then I'm using the height of the smaller pyramid, which will be equal to 12 minus h, and I'm dividing that by the height of the bigger pyramid, which is equal to 12. Now the question is, why am I doing this? The question is, why am I doing this? Because we're supposed to find out the volume of the triangular prism. And what is volume of prism equal to? Volume of prism is equal to area of cross section or base area times the height. Now, as far as area of cross section is concerned, area of cross section is basically the area of the equilateral triangle. Okay, so as far as area of cross section is concerned, that is basically the area of the equilateral triangle times the height. Okay, now how do we find out the area of equilateral triangle? We can use half AB sine C. Okay, so sit tight. Ye zara thoda technical question hai, but it's not that difficult, given that you are able to figure this out. Okay, you know your formulas and you're able to figure this out. Okay, a lot of people will not get this wrong because I think the ratio of people who get this wrong would be 50-50. 50-50 would not be able to figure this out, and I think 50% of the people would not be able to recall the relevant formula. Anyway, now let's find out the length of the equilateral triangle. First, let's simplify. 4 2s are, 4 3s are. Now let's cross multiply. So x is equals to 2 times 12, that's 24, minus 2h upon 3. Okay, so what is this? This is basically the length of the equilateral triangle. Okay. Now how can I find out the area of the triangle? It's going to be half times 24 minus 2h upon 3 into 24 minus 2h upon 3. So that means I can simply square the whole thing. Okay. Multiplied by sine 60. So this is the area of cross section. And what do we have to multiply this with? We have to multiply this by the height, which is equal to h. Okay. Can we do v1 upon v2? Yeah, you could do that. You could do that. I think that's the way I've done it in the video. You could do it like that, but this clicked to me later on, and I realized that this is actually much easier. So you don't need to use the formula, you can use the ratios even to find the height of the base. Yeah, you could do that. Don't we use 1 over 3, but that's for pyramid. We're not finding out the area of the volume of the pyramid, we're finding out the volume of the prism. Okay, read the question carefully, we're finding out the volume of the triangular prism. Anyway, so let's work this out, we're almost there. So 24 squared is 576, 24 times 2 is 48, 48 times 2 is 96h, plus 4h square upon 9, sine 60 is under root 3 upon 2 times h. Okay, so you'll notice that we're actually there. 2 times 9 is 18, 18 times 2 is 36. So that means 576 minus 96h plus 4h square upon 36. Okay, and don't forget that we have an under root 3 outside. Okay, and we also have h here. Now, if you look at the numerator, you will notice that we can take 4 common. Okay, so let's take 4 common in the numerator. So if I take 4 common, so what's 576 divided by 4? 576 divided by 4 is 144 minus 96 divided by 4, that's equal to 24 h plus h square. Don't forget the 4 upon 36, which will simplify in a minute. Don't forget the under root 3 outside, and don't forget the h outside. Okay, so 4 1s are 4, 4 9s are 36, and notice that we're almost there. We have under root 3 upon 9, and now we're going to start multiplying all the values in the numerator by h. So h square times h, that's h cubed minus 24h square plus 144h. So I've changed the order so I can match it the way, I can write it the way the question wants, and there you go. This is the final answer. Now you can argue that this is a lot of working for 4 marks. You can come up with a slightly simpler method, only slightly, it's not going to make a world of a difference, but ultimately the concept of similar shapes or similar objects is what you have to use. I did it using area. Yeah, you can totally do it using area. You can totally do it using volume. v1 upon v2 is equals to. ठीक है, answer same आएगा. Okay, now it is given that as h varies, v has a maximum value. Now from this point onwards, it's all downhill. So you will differentiate it. Okay, so this is what the volume looks like. Now let's differentiate it. So when you differentiate it, so let's let the root 3 upon 9 be as it is for a minute. Okay, here we will have 3h square minus 24 times 2, that's equal to 40. This is dv upon dh, okay? 48h plus 144. Now the second you equate it to 0, this is what you get. 3h square minus 48h plus 144 is equals to 0. Divide the entire equation by 3, so h square minus 48 times 48 divided by 3, what's that? That's equal to 16h plus 144 divided by 3, that's 48 is equals to 0. So factors of 48 that leave you with 16. I think that's 4 times 12. Yeah, so h square minus 4h minus 12h plus 48 is equals to 0. Now I'm going to skip a few steps. So h is equals to 4 or h is equals to 12. ठीक है, exam में ये नहीं करना. Exam में make sure that you show all your working. Use your calculator to check your answer. अच्छा, here's the thing. Which value of h are we going to take? Notice that we cannot take 12 because if I take 12, then 12 minus 12 becomes 0. That's not possible. So that means the value of h which makes the most sense is h is equals to 4. ठीक हो गया. And that's it, fellas. Job done. That is the end of the paper, end of the stream, and also end of the session for me. Sir, are you sad that this is the last live stream, or are you happy, and do tell why? I'll probably enjoy it for the first 2 days, then I'll start missing it. Okay? I'll probably be happy tomorrow and the day after that I don't have to make a mock and I don't have to solve it and everything. But third, fourth day onwards, I'll probably start missing it for sure. 70 is pretty good. If you've gotten 70 in this, that's pretty good. So I appreciate that. Yep, I'll definitely miss this a lot for sure. For sure. V की वैल्यू निकालनी है? नहीं, V की वैल्यू नहीं निकालनी. Find the value of h that gives this maximum value of v. ठीक है. Make sure to read the question. I actually didn't read the question. I just stopped. I thought it's done, but make sure to read the question and see what it is that you're supposed to find. So I'm glad you guys did well. I kind of went against what I stand for. I usually avoid students. I don't recommend that students solve a mock or take a test a day before the exam, but because I had committed, so I had to take a mock. But anyway, so I'll post a video, a good luck video, shortly, and make sure to watch it. I will, inshallah, see you guys next year in A-levels. Okay? So do remember me, my family, the entire team in your prayers. Okay, the entire team has managed to basically put this all together. It's not just my effort. Okay? And every piece of content that we ever think of, okay, we ever post, good, bad, whether it gets, the appreciation or not, the intent is always to make sure that it benefits the students. Okay, so every piece of content you see, the notes, streams, videos, everything is designed with the intent to help you guys. Okay, especially the ones who find it difficult. I feel for the parents who pay so much for school and then the exam fees and everything. So we keep those hardworking parents in mind also when we're making content, to make sure that they don't have to spend a lot of money for their children's education. Okay? So I appreciate the love, I appreciate the support, and inshallah we'll meet again in A-levels. If you guys do well in Add Maths, you should definitely consider taking math in A-levels. Okay, I'm not trying to sell you A-level math or anything, but it's going to be an easy grade for you guys, given that you do well in Add Maths, inshallah. Okay, so let me know how your exam goes. I'll post a video for that also. So do give me your input, and don't just tell me that the paper went well. I want details. Okay, every time I post a video, I want some fine details to get an idea whether the paper was difficult and whether all the concepts that we anticipated were going to be tested, were they actually tested or not. Yeah, I'll upload the solution also. Sir, do you remember you were in Nixer, you managed the class? Yeah, I do remember that. Abhi kuch time pehle I got it showed up as a memory also. I think it was round about the same time of the year, back in 2023. So I do remember that. Sir, could you explain the previous question? Vida, you can watch that part of the video. Okay, you can watch that part of the video. You can watch whatever part of video you want as many times as you like. Okay. Can you explain previous question? Mein one part mein -4 nahi lenge. -4. Beta, read the question. The question, I know what question you're talking about. The question said that you're supposed to take the positive value. Okay, I've already answered that question. Why did I leave Nixer? I left Nixer just so that I can focus on teaching online. That's why I left Nixer. Yes, I remember Sadhu. Sir, will you tell us the threshold of Add Maths after P2? No, I don't do that. Okay, please don't expect me to give you guys the threshold. I don't do that. Okay. Yeah, I did say, like I said, I did go against what I normally suggest, that no past paper on the last day, but I had already committed, and I honestly didn't realize that the paper is on Tuesday. I knew the paper is on Tuesday, but I couldn't keep a mock on Sunday, so I had to sort of live up to my commitment. So that's why. Which is why I didn't make it very difficult. Okay, I kept it somewhere in the middle. Okay. So it's actually getting difficult for me to say goodbye. But this, I guess we have to. I want you guys to be in bed early. get a good night's sleep. Make sure that you guys sleep latest by 11. Okay, and even if you can't sleep, just lie down, close your eyes, and get a good night's sleep. Okay, so just just make sure you read the question carefully. I'll post a video, a small good luck video, so make sure you watch that. Okay, if you miss it, that's also perfectly all right. You can rewatch the video that I posted for the first paper. Okay, तो वो देख लेना. It's the usual stuff, nothing new basically. चलें, so I'll upload the solution. Okay, I'll upload the solution. I'll do it right now because I'm pretty sure as soon as the stream ends and I leave my room, I'll probably forget. So I'll do it right now as we speak. Acha, IB, I don't teach IB. I'm sorry about that. I don't teach IB. I'm completely unaware of what the syllabus is, so that's why I don't. So finally, this is the last goodbye, and good luck as always. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys benefited from all the content. And one thing that I always say, which I didn't say yet, and that is with all the streams, with all the videos and everything, every piece of content, I hope you guys took away more than just math. ठीक है, math तो कहीं से भी पढ़ लेते आप लोग, but I hope you guys took away more than just math from all these times that we spent together. So yeah, good luck, make me proud, let me know how your exam goes. I'll post a video, and that's it from my side. See you guys inshallah. Take care.